live. We are getting ready to go live. It says you are live. Hey, everybody, it's JJ Conway. I'm so excited to be here with you today. It's been a fantastic Juneteenth conference. We've got one more day left. And as you can see, I'm in my home studio. Um, uh, uh, Getting ready to wind down and teach my Thursday night class. Oh my goodness, y'all. I just can't believe that when we hit October, it will be 10 years of teaching people how to invest in real estate, change their lives, build businesses. Y'all, we're going to have an October to October amazing celebration. But let me tell you some things that we're going to be doing up next. Today, we're going to be talking about how to buy a house without going into debt. A lot of times people feel like the American dream is very elusive. So tonight's workshop is going to be on creative financing kinds of strategies, creative real estate strategies that allow you to buy a house without taking out a loan, without going into debt, without pulling from your 401k or doing any kind of thing that might actually hamstring your financial future later on. And if you like what you hear, there will be an opportunity for you to dig deeper. We're going to do a hybrid workshop. So we're going to be live in Fort Worth. And we're also going to have a Zoom option available for those who want to jump into it. Okay, so I put the scroll information down there so I don't forget to tell you, but I'm telling you now, there will be an opportunity later if you were like, yes, I want to do this, JJ. All right, now before I get into tonight's content, I do want to let you know again that tomorrow is the last day of our Juneteenth Legacy Conference. I've got a handful of these fundraiser t-shirts left. I want y'all to go right now to JuneteenthLegacy.com, click to the ticket page, scroll down to the merch, and get you a t-shirt. Y'all, I am so excited about the funds we've been able to raise to help empower global youth initiative, so confident kids, global leaders, and it's through the John Maxwell team, and we have raised so much money, and I want you to be a part of it. You know, one of the things that I never understood until I started giving more was I never understood the connection between what we give and what we get. In fact, in BNI, they teach givers get, and I think Zig Ziglar taught it like givers gain. It's a very similar concept. And the act of giving and the act of helping pour into somebody else actually elevates your energy. So I'm going to ask you to elevate your energy today by elevating the fundraising for these kids by buying a shirt at JuneteenthLegacy.com. And if you haven't already registered and you are a veteran, tomorrow is our Black Veterans Brunch. It is a very small group, a very intimate group, and we are going to talk about some issues that might surprise you. There are a lot of veterans who are very surprised at the end of their career to find out a lot of the shenanigans that happen behind the scenes. There are also a lot of people who are active duty, and they find out that they were told one thing like, oh, you don't have to worry about this, you're so promotable, you're the general's right hand man or the right hand woman, you're going to get promoted, and all the while they're promoting somebody else in their words and in their deeds. We're going to look at some of the dirty tricks that they play in the military to keep you from getting what you've worked so hard for, and we're going to show you what to do about it in the Black Veterans Brunch that is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Mountain, and depending on where you are in Arizona, and 7 a.m. I know it's a little early, but it's going to be worth it, y'all. Pacific time. So I want y'all to be there with me. You can also go to Juneteenth Legacy and you can get that free ticket. All right. It's a closed session, but it is free. All right. So today, hey, while I'm just thinking through what we're going to talk about today, if you have a question about anything that we have covered in our Juneteenth Legacy Conference, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Because what I want to do real quick, there's so many different topics when it comes to debt-free real estate investing. I want to make sure I cover the ones that you definitely are interested in. So if you have a real estate question, go ahead and drop it in the chat. If you have a question about anything you've heard in these last 2 days of Juneteenth Legacy, go ahead and drop it in the chat, okay? Okay. Let me see what we've got. Okay. I think I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And if you have questions at any time, you can drop them in at any time. It's okay. It's now I'm going to warn you. I might finish my thought, and the fact that I'm finishing my thought before answering your question doesn't mean I didn't hear your question or I didn't see your comment. Now, I may not see your comment, but the fact that I keep talking after you hit send doesn't mean I didn't see your comment. It simply means that I'm finishing my thought before moving to the next thought. All right, fair enough? Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to buy a house without going into debt. Now, for those of you who don't know why being debt free is so important to me, let me tell you why I'm so passionate about being debt free. As a financial planner, not only do I see so many people's lives hamstringed by debts, especially debts that are considered good debt, that I have come to the conclusion that living a debt free lifestyle is actually the fastest path to financial security and the fastest path to financial independence. Now, that doesn't mean that other paths don't work for some people, but if I am going to come up with something that applies to everybody, that works 100% of the time for 100% of the people that work it, the only plan I can present to you is a debt free lifestyle. Are there people who make big money leveraging other people's money in real estate? Sure, there are. I know some of them, but I also know many, many more who lost everything and then some because of playing in those reindeer games. Do I know people that have used whole life policies and cash value policies to help get them where they want to go? Of course I do. And if you've got a special needs kid, as a financial planner, I'm going to recommend that type of insurance over the traditional recommend of a debt-free lifestyle, which is your term insurance. Absolutely, I know people who succeed in those realms. But I'm gonna tell you something as a financial planner, the most people I find making money on those policies is the ones who are selling them to you and the ones who are bringing you into them. And I'm not knocking it if it's what works for you, but I remember the policies that were sold to me. I remember the policies that were sold to me and they weren't good. And I didn't know enough back then to know that they weren't good. All I know is that somebody I trusted said, you need insurance. And they were right. And here's some insurance for you. And for that, they were wrong because that insurance policy put $4,000 in their pocket, but it was a horrible, horrible policy for double income, no kids. Okay. And so, there's a lot of things, there's a lot to be said for guaranteed insurability. There's a lot to be said for a lot of other things, but a lot of these kinds of things are situation dependent. My goal is not for you to take a tax-free loan when you get older. My goal is for you to have tax-free money, tax-free earnings, tax-free passive income. That's what we teach here. All right. And so I'm not knocking what works for everybody else, but what works for everybody else sometimes won't work for you. The plan that I have, that we do work on debt free and we do things in a debt free manner, that works 100. Again, I'm going to say it again. Other methods may work for other people. From time to time, somebody pops up that does big with MLMs. Somebody pops up that does great with insurance. And I'm not just talking about they brought you into it. Okay. There are times when people pop up, they're great with this and they're great with that. They did great in crypto. They did this and blah, 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 blah. I teach what works for 100% of the people who work it. And I have never had a person who worked my plan come back to me and say it didn't work for them. In fact, it's the opposite. I have had people that I never thought would get financially independent become financially independent in 5 years on disability, not able to work. I have had people come in and pay off their loans, pay off their debts, secure their housing, and be financially set for the rest of their lives following these processes. I've never had a person who did what I teach them to do who doesn't have greater financial peace at the end of every year. So there you go. All right. So I said all that to say, when it comes to buying real estate, if we're talking about the house that you're actually going to live in, I don't generally have a huge problem with you taking out a mortgage if it's the house you're going to live in. Okay. Now, let me tell you when I have a problem with you taking out a mortgage. Some of you about to get real mad at me. Some of you about to drop off my channel. Some of you might even unsubscribe. I hope you don't. I hope instead you pick that like, you hit that subscribe. And if there's a notification bell, you hit that too, so you can get the next droplet of goodness I'm going to share with you. I don't recommend that people use FHA, VA, an esoteric special finagle. You can't afford it, but we're going to put you in a loan anyway, program loans. When do I recommend that you use a VA loan? When you're 100% disabled and you don't have to pay that funding fee. When do I recommend that you do an FHA loan? When there's so many other things that go along with you being a first-time homeowner or a first-time or in a rural neighborhood. That's not FHA. I forget what that's called when it's a rural loan. When you've got so many other good things going for you as a result of taking that loan, that you get all those benefits, but you have the money in the bank to buy traditionally, that's the only time I recommend you do those. Why? Because too many people are hamstrung later because they took the easy road today. And it kills me because I love people to succeed, and then people want me to be so excited for them when they like, oh, I just bought my first house and I spent $400,000 and I took a VA loan and I know that real estate is gonna appreciate. Honey, that's what I said back in 2005 when we bought that $405,000 house that crashed 180,000 and still hasn't gotten back up. That's what I said back then. And guess what? It's all these years later. It's all these years later. You do not know what is going to happen tomorrow. The only sure thing you've got is what's going on right now. And that doesn't mean we put our trust in riches, and that doesn't mean that we don't walk by faith. When the Lord tells us to move, we move, right? But I've seen it as a financial planner. I have seen too many times where people thought I were getting a great deal. Somebody's getting me into a loan product that puts me in a property that otherwise I wouldn't be able to get into. If you otherwise wouldn't be able to get into it, it's probably a sign that you shouldn't. That doesn't mean we can't get you there and get you there quickly and or use a different an alternative wet method of purchase, but it probably means you should save for a year or two first. Oh, but JJ, the prices are skyrocketing. If I don't buy now, the interest rates are climbing. If I don't buy now, I'll never get a chance to buy. You know, interest rates today are still lower than they were when I bought my first house. There is never a bad time, never a bad interest rate for you to make money with real estate, for you to make money by owning your own home and adding that to your wealth portfolio. There isn't. I remember when I first started thinking about buying a house, interest rates were in the tens, and by the time we actually found the house that we wanted to buy, a year or two later, interest rates had dropped to the sevens and the eights, the sevens and eights. I think our first loan it was a 7.9 or a 7.5. It was a 7 point something. It certainly wasn't two, and it certainly wasn't six. So I'm saying all that to say I don't have a problem with you using a mortgage to get into a home that you live in and you intend to be in for the long haul. But I do have a problem with these special strategies to get you into home ownership now that come back and hamstring you later. They get you into home ownership now, but by the time you pay that funding fee, now you've got all this extra money that has to be paid later. That eats away your equity and it also takes away your options. And one of the things that we've been talking about in the Juneteenth Legacy Conference these last 2 days is that one of the keys to happiness and one of the keys to success is having options. I want you to have financial options. See, I remember the first day, the very first real estate paycheck I made. I wasn't an investor per se back then. We tried to be an investor. Like we tried to do the military thing of buy a house when in every place you buy, you're going to move and then you're going to rent that out. And every time we kept losing money because we didn't know enough. Neither one of us had, me and my ex-husband, neither one of us had ever even lived in a house till then. We didn't know that if you want to rent a house out, you probably shouldn't buy one with a big old pool because very few insurers are going to insure it, especially since you're already in Florida, which is already a floodplain. I mean, it's Florida. Everybody's got a screened-in porch in a backyard with a pool, right? Wrong. Not and then we move somewhere else. And well, then what else do we discover? We discover that if you buy a house that you want to rent out, you ought not customize it with all your favorite things. Because guess what? People don't always like what you like. You know, I learned another really hard lesson when we were in Oklahoma. And this realtor was white. And I didn't understand because I grew up overseas. I didn't understand what he was saying. And I know some of you who are realtors, you are going to say, well, we tell everybody to take their personal effects down. And I did that when I was a realtor. I would tell people to make sure you take a lot of your personality down so your new buyer could see that themselves in the property instead of seeing you in the property. But our realtor was emphatic. Do not take all the things that reference you out of this house. Take every picture, take every album, take everything that reflects who you are, and do not even let these people see you. When they come to look at the house, you be gone half an hour before, and you don't come home for an hour after the appointment, because if the minute they see you, the deal is off. And y'all, I was pregnant with my firstborn, my miracle baby, and my ex-husband moved. This was a good decision. Look, he made a lot of bad decisions, but I believe in giving credit where credit is due. He moved us into a residence inn so we would have free breakfast and most nights a little free dinner. But I was tired of eating hotel food after about 2 months. And so one day I just wanted to go back and cook myself something from scratch. And we had people were supposed to come in 2 hours. It was their third visit to the house. They had already measured and already ordered blinds, and they were coming back to measure something else. And we had 2 or 3 hours before they were supposed to come. So I cooked something, me and my pregnant self, in my uniform, no less, in my uniform, cooked something. It was so good, yeah. And I just remember it was so nice to have a home cooked meal for once after being in the hotel for a couple months. And I go to leave the house, and the people are pulling in, and I see the look of horror on the woman's face. Now, I did not understand why she had a look of horror on her face. I just thought she was mortified because it's an awkward situation to see the owner. And then she saw how pregnant I was. You know, in my mind, because I wasn't used to race issues back then, I thought maybe it was just that she was worried we weren't going to negotiate or anything. Or maybe she thought that she could have negotiated more because I was so very, very pregnant that maybe she could have gotten more out of us. I had no idea until the realtor called us up an hour later and was like, I told you not to be seen. And I was like, I don't understand. I told you not to be seen. And because that woman saw that her house was owned by a Black person, within the hour, they backed out of the deal. Never mind all the things they had already ordered. Never mind all the measurements they'd already taken. Never mind the fact that this was their third visit to the house and they loved the house. They refused to buy a house from a Black woman. And that's the world we still live in today. That has nothing to do with this class. But somebody out there needs to understand there are very real factors that are stacked against you when it comes to real estate. And that's why I teach what I teach. And that's why I teach it the way I teach it. There's too many factors stacked out against us. And the only way we're going to do something about it is if we work together to overcome it. All right. So we had a hard time with that whole military adage of buy a house at every base. Every base we went to, we lost. The base we went to after that, my ex-husband bought us to this neighborhood. It was a really nice neighborhood back in the day. If any of you familiar with Montgomery, Alabama, Exit 4, you're like shuddering now because you're like, what? Y'all used to live off of Exit 4? Well, you know what? Back in the day, it wasn't that bad. But we bought into the property, and the property was experiencing something called white flight, which means 1 or 2 Black people moved in the neighborhood, and all the white people were selling out their houses and moving up to the north side of town. So we bought that house and lost 40,000 on it because as more and more people of color moved into the neighborhood, the property values went down. Again, there's a reason behind why I teach what I teach. And it's not just me wanting to be different from everybody else. Although I do like the fact that I am fairly unique. It's because I want you to succeed no matter what the market does. I want you to be able to succeed if you buy a house and the values go down because too many ethnicities or because of this issue or that issue. I want you to be able to succeed no matter what. And when you buy real estate the way I teach it, you will succeed. And you might say, well, JJ, you're going to tell us some pretty powerful strategies today. Why is it the more people aren't doing these things? Well, the first reason more people aren't doing them is because the fact of the matter is a lot of us don't know that we can. Okay. A lot of people don't know that these strategies exist, and a lot of people don't know that these strategies work. And especially if you come from a background like mine, where you basically, what you know of real estate has been passed down from broke people. Okay. That may not serve you very well. Okay. So a lot of people don't know. My people perish for lack of knowledge. It's not their fault that they don't have the knowledge, but they still perish. Let that sink in for a second. A universal principle and fabric of the universe is that you could be perishing from knowledge you don't have and not even realize it. However, another wonderful one of my favorite scriptures is that if we will seek diligently, the Lord will reward us. And so if we will be diligent, those another universal principle that woven into the fabric of how God created this universe is that if you will be diligent to seek, if you will be diligent to find, if you will be diligent to knock, everything that you want will be opened. So the way that this whole world we live in has been designed is that people perish for lack of knowledge. The foolish go on and they don't take action. They keep going and they're punished. But the wise see the trouble brewing, they take action and they avoid it, right? That's the fabric of this universe. If we don't take action, if we don't actually do something to improve ourselves, if we don't seek out knowledge from people who are successful, we will find ourselves on the wrong end of that equation, wondering what happened. But what I like to teach you is how to tell your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Okay. So the first reason that more people don't utilize these strategies is because they simply don't know about them. Or if they've heard about them, it sounds too good to be true. Or if they've heard about them, it's in the back of a hotel room conference where it's like, pay your $5,000 and we'll teach you more. Or it's one of those things where they found out about it, but they just felt like it just wasn't for them. They didn't have anybody with their background, situation, experiences, comfort level to help lead and guide them who truly cared. And that's one of the things that I offer with you today is that I really do care. I don't do this because I need the money anymore. I do this because I care. All right. The another reason that more people don't do the strategies that I'm about to tell you is because I can't just go out and say, you know what? I want my neighbor's house across the street. I'm going to use these strategies to get my neighbor's house across the street. That's not how this works. This is one of those things that you get what you get and you don't throw a fit, right? Like you cherry pick through the deals, but you need to acknowledge that the deals aren't necessarily in your backyard until they are. And sometimes they are, but often they're not. Often the deals that come to you are not the house that you want to live in right away. And often the deals that come to you may need a little bit of work, or you might not realize that this is a great deal, but it looks like more work than it is, and you never brought a real estate mentor in, so you didn't know. Okay. On the other hand, a lot of times people are like, oh, it just needs cosmetic. And I walk in there like, this is gonna need $100,000 of work right here. And not just any work, but like work you're gonna have to pull permits for, and you're gonna have to get mold remediation, and you're gonna have to do all these official things. I'm not trying to do all that right now today. All right. So the second reason that I would say that a lot of people don't do this is because we all have these thoughts of what it is we want and what we are entitled to for how hard we work. And I'm not saying you don't deserve the finer things. You absolutely deserve the finer things. But let's leverage the things that come to us and turn them into the finer things instead of holding back and missing out on money, holding back and missing out on deals, holding back and missing out on opportunities to succeed because it doesn't come in the package, the shape, the form that you are expecting or desiring. Okay. So that's the number two reason. The number three reason is, quite frankly, this stuff takes work. These strategies that I'm going to share with you today, other than lease options, most of these strategies that I'm going to share with you today, they take work. They take a lot of research. They take a lot of groundwork. Some of them take a lot of phone calls to find the deals, to create the deals out of nothing. And so when we want to, I had somebody come to me one time and she said, I want you to, I want to engage you as my mentor to show me how to invest in real estate. And I was like, well, you're in so-and-so's area of the country. Did you ever participate in his mentoring program? Oh yeah, I did, but it wasn't very successful. And I was like, oh, okay. When somebody says a mentor did not do well by them, you always kind of have to wonder why, because sometimes there's a very real issue. Like I took on with a new mentor, and they asked me, well, why did you make a break with so and so? So and so was your guy. You were one of their faculty. You were doing all the things. And I was like, well, we had some ideological differences that came out after the whole George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. And I felt like I could no longer continue giving my money into his business. Not that what he taught me wasn't good, not that I still don't use it on a daily basis, not that I don't teach those lessons on to people that I mentor, but ideologically speaking, I felt like I needed to make a break so that I could walk in integrity with myself. Okay. So I gave that answer. But a lot of times other people are like, oh, well, they just cheat people, or oh, they don't ever help me, or oh, they won't do what they promised me this, but they didn't do it. And what they really saying, y'all, what they're really saying is, I expected this person to take the money I gave them to hire them as my mentor and instantly turn it into millions of dollars for me overnight. I expected them to give me some pithy, easy button thing that was going to immediately make all my problems go away. And I wasn't willing to do any of the work. And that's really why I left them. But what they say was, oh, they didn't perform, or they were just a scam, or they were just a swindle. Okay. And so this person is like, so, well, it didn't really work out. And I'm like, well, okay, well, let's talk about this. Well, I could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this for your situation. Let's talk through some of these options. Option one, nope, I don't want to do that. Option two, nope, I don't want to do that. Option three, nope, I don't want to do that. Option four, no, I sure don't want to do that. I don't want to make these phone calls. I'm expecting you to teach me how I can make money without knocking on doors and making phone calls. And I was like, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do that in real estate. I'm sorry. As a realtor, as a former realtor, and as a real estate investor, especially as a realtor, I don't know how you get started as a realtor without knocking on doors and putting out and mailing out flyers and making phone calls. Like, that's how you get started. But the thing is, you're going to make 100 phone calls before somebody even answers you. You're going to get 100 no responses before somebody even comes back with a yes, or somebody comes back with a, well, the original offer was 200 and we want 200, not your 80 that you offered for the house, right? Like you're going to get mostly no response. And that can be tiring and it can wear you down. But I'm telling y'all, once you get that first deal and you make that 50, 60, $70,000, $120,000 off that first deal, and then you're like, wow, that was my paycheck. You will never go back to complaining about making phone calls and knocking on doors. And that's how I felt the day that I first had financial flexibility. It was the day I sold my very first property as a realtor. Little townhome in Upper Marble, Maryland, by Andrews Air Force Base. Little townhome wasn't worth a whole lot as far as properties in that region went, but that check, y'all, that check, my 50% of the broker's 50% of the commission was the exact same amount as my military paycheck plus my locality pay for living in one of the most expensive areas of the country. And when I looked at that check, I still remember, y'all, it was $4,700. My locality pay back then, because this was a while ago, y'all. This is how old I am. My locality pay back then was about $2,000, and my base pay was like $2,700. And I looked at that check, that $4,700, and I was like, this is $4,700 for selling one little rinky-dink townhome that's on the small end of the price point for this market. And you know what I did that night? I went home and I looked at that uniform and I said, I don't ever have to do this if I don't want to. I've got another way I can make my money. And that's the first thing I want for everybody under the sound of my voice. I want you to have what I call financial flexibility. You have a different ways that you can make money, so you are not hamstrung or stuck or handcuffed to toxic work environments because you don't know any other way to make money. And from then until the very end of my career, y'all, my Air Force career was a blast. And at the end of my career, I was like, this is not a blast anymore. This is not fun. I wasn't 100% ready to I was willing to give it one more assignment before I called it quits, but medical and life had a different take and kind of pushed me into retirement. But I was like, I don't have to do this. At that time, I made more money with my real estate, my business, and my other stuff. I did not have to be there for the money. I did not have to be there. And that's what I want for you. All right. All right. So some of you are like, okay, well, we came to talk about a house. Well, I wanted to preface that because what I'm going to teach you about tonight is a little uncomfortable for a lot of people. Okay. And I don't have my slides. I admittedly I have to cut this out of the recording if I remember to. If I don't, yeah, I hope you'll love my transparency. I was intending to broadcast this from the studio because have y'all heard me broadcasting from the new studio? We haven't finished it yet, but the sound, the mics and the system is just so much better. And I just love my recordings. And I'm like, I want to do all my stuff in my new office. I don't want to use this office anymore. But for the sake of my family who has been missing wifey and mommy, I decided that I will broadcast here today and be able to spend time with my family afterward. The Juneteenth conference has been quite time consuming. And we do have one day left, y'all. So come on out. Juneteenth Legacy. You can get your shirt and you can sign up for the Black Veterans Brunch. Okay. So, what I'm going to talk to you about today are some ways that you can buy property without going into debt. Now, a lot of times when you hear people talk about debt free real estate investing, what they are basically teaching you to do is use other people's money. But the reality is, if you've ever done a hard money deal or you've ever done a deal where you have private investors come into your deal and fund your deals, you are still taking on debt. You are taking on the debt to them. It may not be bank debt, and depending on who that investor is, or depending on who the hard money lender is, they may not be reporting it to the credit bureau. And maybe the only recourse behind that debt is the property. So if everything goes south, your family isn't at risk, but it's still debt. And when those mortgages don't get paid, I have seen people stoop to such low levels of character because they took on a hard money loan at 14, 15% because they thought they could flip this house in just 2 days because all it needs is a little bit of paint and a new door. And then they get into it after 3 months and they still haven't finished replacing the walls from all the mold they found. And then people start stooping to stupid. They start stooping to stupid and they start scamming people and they start taking advantage of people, you know and people that you trust, they leverage that trust to try to get money because they're hurting. They got to pay these debts and they got to pay those bills. And so we're going to talk about some of that today, but that's not this. So if you came here to look at how to leverage other people's money or how to get private investors to invest in your deals, that is not what we are going to be talking about today. I do have a class on private lending. In fact, let me just look real quick and see what it is, because even though I don't like people to use private lending, that is how I got my start. And I feel like no real estate investment education would be complete unless I explained and taught you about hard money loans and private lending and private investors and things like that. So I do teach on it, but it's not something that I recommend until you have enough money in the bank that if that loan goes south, you can take care of it, or that you have enough assets that are fairly priced, that are priced well enough that you can sell them and move them quickly and take care of that. That's the only time I'm going to recommend that you take on debt for investments. I'm sorry. In September, it's going to be private lending 101. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's what we'll be doing for private lending 101. All right. All right. 18 July, we've got creative financing. I think I might do, that's really kind of a part two to this. So that's actually kind of perfect. All right. Let me see if I can figure out how to get back to my broadcast. I clicked that to give you all the schedule and then I lost the broadcast. Hey, there you all are. All right. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to talk to you about today is a way that a lot of people that I have talked to who are actually financially independent real estate investors, how they actually got started, which surprised me. So wait, let me say it the right way. the people that I have talked to here in rural Texas since moving out here a couple years ago, my husband has a really good contract teaching at the school. He does band. He's a band director at the junior high, and he assists with the high school and the middle school, and all the things. And so we're out here in rural Texas, and it's a new world for me. But a lot of the people that I have met out here who came from humble beginnings and are now secure in their real estate. They got their start with the first strategy that I'm going to tell you about, which is lease option. Lease option is when you lease a property with an option to buy it at a later date. Some states like Texas are really cracking down on a lease option deal because it's a very predatory experience. And in fact, one of the ladies I was talking to about real estate, she's like, yeah, our first property was a lease option, and we knew that guy was just waiting for us to not pay our bill, because most of these, that they don't ever fulfill the contract and they don't ever get the property. And I've sat there like, yeah, I know. I've sat in the investor trainings where all the investors are salivating over lease options because they know people aren't going to pay them the full time, and they're going to end up selling the house to somebody else and rinse and repeat over and over. So why would an investor like to do that? Because of what a lease option entails. A lease option is I pay you a fee for the right to buy your house at another time later. I rent it. That's the lease part. I'm renting it right now, but I might pay you an extra $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 for the right to lock in a price today that we're going to execute in a year, 2, 3, however it might be. Some states still allow you to do this. In Texas, if you enter into a lease option, by law, that lease option tenant has to be on the deed after 6 months. So there's a couple ways that people get around that. One, some people do owner financing. So basically, the owner of the property is selling you the property at a loan. I just said I'm trying to show y'all ways to get into a property without a loan. So why would I recommend this to you? I'm not necessarily recommending for or against it. If you are living in the house and you can financially cover sound financial strategies in buying the house and taking out a mortgage, I don't have a problem with that. Well, JJ, if I had sound financial savings and all the things, then I wouldn't need to go to an owner finance. Well, you might if you have an ex like me who doesn't pay his bills, or if you have an ex like my husband has, who doesn't pay her bills. Either one of us is not very good loanable. We are not very loanable people. If I didn't already have a debt-free lifestyle for the most part in my life, I will admit I've had my blips here and there. Even after I got debt free the first time, and even after I started teaching people, there's been times where I've been enticed by the credit card, or enticed by doing this for the gospel's sake, or enticed by doing this because it's for the children, and the Lord will work it out, and the good will come back to me. There's times in my life where I've made those mistakes, but I tell you what, even if I wanted to go out and get a big old fat loan, it's probably not coming to me. Because I'm so intertwined with other people who don't pay their bills expecting me to pay them. And I'm not. I'm not going to pay them. And so you take that chance, right? So if you're in that kind of a situation, you might look for an owner finance, but I still want you to follow sound financial principles. So I want you to have at least 10% as a down payment. They may not require you to pay it, but I want you to still have it. Okay, that you are not buying a house that is more than 25% of that the payments are more than 25% of your pay. You want to be able to be in the house and actually buy stuff to be in the house and have food in the house and be able to keep the lights on in the house. We don't want anybody to be house poor today, okay? So if you can follow those two very simple guidelines, I'm not mad at you if you're buying that for yourself as an owner finance. I would say tread very carefully if you're buying from somebody else. But let's owner finance. Let's go back to lease option. So in a lease option situation, I pay you for the right to buy your house at a predetermined price. The house today is worth $100,000. I'm going to pay you a $2,000 option fee for the right to buy it next year at 110. Seems like reasonable inflation? Maybe not, but seems like reasonable inflation to somebody. Okay, we'll do that deal. So then what that gives you is a locked in rate and a locked in price. And now you can work towards saving your down payment. And now you can work towards getting your credit and everything cleaned up so that you can get the right type of mortgage to make this your home. But like I said earlier, most landlords know that lease options fail, fail, fail. Why do they fail, fail, fail? Because they usually set them at very high prices. So these are not the kinds of things you want to do if you have other options, okay? But they have worked for a lot of people, and I'm finding in this area of the country where I'm at that there are quite a few people from very, very, very humble beginnings who have used the strategy of lease option to get their first house and then leverage that into future properties, and today are financially independent, which is where I want everybody to get to. All right, so that's lease option. We also talked about owner finance. When I see owner finance, I still call the sign because I'm trying to get them to donate property to Erath County veterans. And if they can afford to finance it, they can afford to donate it. And if they can't donate it, they can afford to rent it to us for free for a year in exchange for a little elbow grease. So y'all know a property, let me know. All right. So that's lease option owner financing. Another one I want to talk about is subject to. And again, I know I'm going through this kind of fast, and I know I don't have any slides today, but I am offering an all-day workshop that's going to go into details on each of these strategies as well as how to find them. Okay, I'm giving you what the strategies are tonight. I'm not giving you the how you find them, the marketing and the prospecting. That's about a 2-hour block to really dig into. And we're going to cover all of that on the 24th of July. That's a Wednesday. We're going to be in Fort Worth. I'm still finalizing the contract for the location. We're going to be Wednesday, the 24th of July, and we're going to be all day. So basically after, school shouldn't be in, but if you have like daycare programs, it'll be, probably 9 to 4 or 9 to 3:30 or something like that. So you can beat the Fort Worth weather for traffic, but you can still get as much. We'll look at having lunch catered. It's going to depend on how many people in the room. A lot of times when I do these all day things, I do my private lender presentation during lunch. The private lender presentation that Alan Cowgill taught me and my ex-husband how to do like way back in 2005. It's still an excellent presentation. And if you attend, you will actually get the PowerPoint to be able to adapt it yourself. Now, I'm not going to give you Alan's content. Alan's content is a couple $1,000s, but I will give you my PowerPoint. All right. When I used to teach the follow-on sessions, I actually sent people through Alan's class rather than try to teach it myself, because he gives you all the things like how you stay good with the SEC, if you pull investors together and stuff like that. So if you're going to go take an Alan Cowgill class, please hit your girl up and come through me so I can get a little street credit. He don't do an affiliate fee, but at least let me get some street cred and maybe build some points to coming back to another event. All right. Just let me help you. Let me help you with that. All right. Help you probably get you the best pricing on it too. Okay. So that's owner financing. That's lease option. Now I want to talk about subject to, and subject to is one of my favorite ways to buy properties. Leading up till now, I did really well with tax sales this year, so I'm very excited about that. But subject to me provides just as much of a win-win as tax sales. So we're going to talk about the subject to, and then I'm going to talk about tax sales. All right. The thing about subject to is basically what you're doing is you're taking over somebody else's loan. What you're not doing is putting that loan in your name. So we're not talking about an assumable loan here. An assumable loan is where somebody takes a mortgage and there's a clause built in that says this loan is assumable by somebody else. So what happens then when they sell that property, whatever's left of that payment now goes with that same loan and those same terms now goes to the new purchaser. And if there's any excess in the purchase price, the new person who's buying it has to pay the difference out of pocket. So for example, I'm buying a house that's worth $235,000 and that's an assumable loan. They've paid on it for about 20 years. So there's maybe $100,000 left on it. And so I can assume the $100,000 that the other people have at 2%, right? But what I gotta also do is I've got to have my own source for that other what did I say, 250, 235, whatever the rest of the purchase price is, I got to bring that to the table, whether that's a mortgage or whether that's my own savings or what have you. Okay. So an assumable loan does not mean that the person who's selling the house is going to take less for the house. It just means that for the portion of the loan that's left, you can take that over. And you do that with the bank, and the loan becomes under your name, and they still have to vet you and all those things. That is not what I'm talking about with subject to. Subject to is they have to move in a hurry. They cannot unload this house. Mama's starting to stress out because they can't afford to carry this house and move wherever the military's sending them to move. So you come in and take over the house. And now you are making the payments that are still in their name. You are paying off the loan that is still in their name. And then you are, when you are able to, you are going to refinance that property and get them out of it. Now, most investors who are doing these strategies generally aren't refinancing it out of their name into the investor's name. They're refinancing it out of their name to an end buyer. So I take over your loan. You move on, and you're not happy that the house is still in your name, but you are so relieved you don't have to worry about that $2,000 a month payment anymore. I take over that $2,000 a month payment. I put another person in there as an owner finance property who they have themselves been trying to buy a house, but because of bad credit, or maybe they're I-10s individuals, so they don't have a social security number, but they are legally allowed to be here and buy property and stuff. They come in and they're willing to pay me $2,500 a month for it. So I take their $2,500 a month for it. Okay. I'm hoping you can see what my hands are doing. I take their $2,500 a month for it. All right. Then I pay the mortgage at $2,000 and I pocket the extra $5. And because now I'm owner financing it to the couple that's paying $2,500, it's their house. It's their house. We go down to August REI or one of the other mortgage folks, and we actually close it like official loan documents. I'm my company, not me, not your name, but your company is the mortgage holder, and they are the mortgagee, and they are paying you, and you're collecting the spread. But because it's now their house, you're not fixing the toilets. They have to get the insurance, and if a storm comes through, they need to call in that insurance, and you need to make sure they do so they don't mess up your investment. But they need to go and get that roof repaired. If their air conditioning goes out, that's on them to fix because it's their house. Do you see how powerful a strategy that is? And so that's what a lot of investors are doing. But if you're trying to buy your own first house and you can't seem to find anything, one of these kinds of properties may be a blessing to you because you're able to take over a loan. You don't have to go save for it. You don't have to go show all your bad history for it. You don't have to have them laugh in your face about the divorce and all the other things. Not like I've ever had that happen to me. All the other things that have happened to you in your life that make you not a good thing, make you not a good risk to rent, right? Or to lend to. Like, you don't have to go through all that humiliation. Now, this is not for everybody, right? Because there's always the risk. And all my years of real estate investing, I know one guy who in his 30 years of real estate, this has only happened one time. There's always the risk that those people are going to do something to mess you up, or the bank is going to call the loan due. And I'm going to tell you right now, aside from this one time with this one guy, he hadn't seen it in 30 years except for this one time. The person who he bought the house from, it was like 2 or 3 years later, he was getting antsy that the house was still in his name, and he called up the bank to want to know when his loan was going to when he was going to clear that loan. And he should have called up my investor friend. And the loan company, the bank was like, wait a second, what's going on here? But most of the time, I'd say 99.999 times out of 100, if you make the payments on time, the bank is good with that. Okay. Unless now in today's environment, you might see more of that where current interest rates are 6s and low 7s. And this one has like a 1.5. They might be watching that like a hawk. So you do want to take it, be careful with that, get all your paperwork signed. But it can be a real blessing to somebody who otherwise can't qualify for a house. But you make enough money. You can't qualify for a house, but you have good financial spending patterns. You can't qualify for a house, but you've got a sizable savings account for a down payment. this could be an excellent way for you to get into a property and create a win-win solution. It is a win for the homeowner and it is a win for you. And if you do this as an investor, it is also a win for whoever comes in and buys the property ultimately in the long term. And so this is one of those, subject to is one of those, you're not creating new debt. You're actually absolving somebody else of a debt that they're in over their heads and they desperately need relief from. And unless you have somebody else come in and buy it and you can't afford to own or finance it, maybe they get a loan to buy it from you and you just sell it outright. Unless you're doing that, you're not taking on more debt and risk to your name. Now, if you want to talk about other people's money, that's the kind of other people's money I want you playing with. I don't want you playing with the other people's money where you're paying 15% back to them for their money and you don't know what you're doing. Again, I'm not knocking the fact that some people do succeed in those ways, but me personally, I don't recommend you get into that game till you know what you're doing. And I like you to have a sizable savings account so that if something goes south, you can cleanly get out of that and make everybody whole in that relationship. All right, so that was subject 2. We've covered lease options, owner financing, subject 2. Now, there are some. Now we're not even going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. There's some other things that we could talk about that might be perceived as predatory, so I don't recommend them. But we're not going to talk about those today because I'm looking at the time. I'm just going to go ahead and talk to you about tax sales. So the same way subject 2 provides a win-win, tax sales also provide a win-win. Okay. The thing about tax sales, you probably heard this advertised on late night TV. Buy a house for $500, free and clear, nothing down, right? Buy a house for pennies on the dollar. And those are all true statements with tax sales. Okay. And I'm going to explain why those are true statements, but usually don't happen. Okay. So with a tax sale, what you're doing, and we just did a whole class on this last month. We did a whole thing on tax sales last month. And actually, people who bought into the program actually looked over my shoulders and they watched me go through the last Bossier Parish tax sale a couple weeks ago. So that was a lot of fun, right? And then in the Juneteenth Legacy Conference, I have a whole almost 2-hour workshop called the Tax Sale Trifecta. And if you want to know more about this last strategy, you go ahead and sign up for the conference at JuneteenthLegacy.com. Make sure you get your shirt, but sign up for the conference and you'll get the schedule and you'll be able to find when that's being broadcast tomorrow so you can catch it one last time. All right. Let me just take a quick drink here. So I am not going to attempt to do a 2-hour workshop in the next 5 minutes. But I want to summarize it for you like the others so that if this is something you're interested in, now you know what to go look for. And now you know which of my YouTube broadcasts to go find, okay? Because all of these things that I've talked about today have a live broadcast where we've dug into each one of these for at least an hour on my YouTube channel at JJ Knows the Way. All right, so now the way that a tax sale works is that if people don't pay their property tax, in order to still have the revenue that the county, the city, the jurisdiction, the parish is counting on, they are going to sell that tax off to an investor. There's 3 types of ways that states do this, and each state generally does all the same thing in all of its cities and all of its parishes or all of its counties, okay? And so you've got states like Texas, which is a tax deed state, so you're basically buying the house. You've got states like Maryland, which is a tax lien state. You pay the tax and you get a lien against the house for the value of the tax that you paid and any legal fees, right? And then you've got Louisiana, Napoleonic law, that still does tax certificates where you pay the tax and you're getting a percentage ownership in the property. Okay. And so that can get those can get a little wonky, but whatever state you're in, there's different strategies that you use to maximize them. In all the different strategies, you pay the tax. In all of them, you pay the tax. In some of them, you pay a tax plus an extra amount if you bid a certain amount that you want to buy the house for. In others, you pay the tax and you get the percentage ownership. In others, you pay the tax and you're bidding down how much interest you want if the people redeem it. There's all kinds of different ways that jurisdictions do it, but the bottom line is everybody pays the tax. And then the owner has an opportunity to redeem the property. And by redeem the property, they got to pay the tax and they got to pay any interest accrued. So in some states and some counties, it may be 24%. It may be 12%. You may have to bid on the percent. And some you have to bid and say, well, I'm willing to, I know the county rate is 12%, but I'm willing to take 7% on this property. And you bid down how little percentage interest you are willing to take if the owner redeems. And some places you're bidding you're bidding up the price of the house, and some places you're bidding down how much percentage ownership. Like at one time I was like 1% owner of like 16 different properties in Louisiana. That's not my jam anymore. I've been there, done that. I made good money off of it. I did make good money off of it, but I have a different goal now that I'm a little bit older. And my goal is actually to acquire properties. And so I made the comment about how, wait a second, did I finish that? Yeah, if they redeem it. Let me finish the thought on redeeming. If the original homeowner redeems the property in the time set by the county, parish, or whatever you call your jurisdiction, then they get the house back. Or if they're in a state where they were already there, then you just disappear. You take your money and you disappear out of their lives forever, right? If they don't, now you can begin the process of ownership. Whether you're in a lien situation where you can go file foreclosure on that, whether you're in a deed situation and you simply go down and finish paying the rest of what you promised you would pay for it, or whether you're in a certificate situation where if it's not 100%, that depending on how much you percent owner you are and how valuable the property is, you have different options available to you. Like I had one where they didn't redeem after 3 years, but I was only a 4% interest of a parcel that was worth like $50,000. It was going to cost me 10 to 15,000 to partition that parcel and get my little piece of it anyway. So that was not worth it to me. There was no way I wanted to spend that money on that one. I called that one a loss. And if you were in my live look over your shoulder look over my shoulder tax sale class, we actually talked about that little deal because I showed y'all how to do the research, and I used that property as a test case. And I showed people how to do the research, and it turns out somebody's been paying the property tax. So somebody's getting ready to buy it, and they can't do anything with it without getting my name off of it. So, they can do a lot if I'm not there to shoo them off the land. But at the end of the day, if the heirs want to sell it, they're gonna have to get me off of it. So, and I've made serious money that way on some where they had no interest in redeeming. But when granddaddy started to get sickly and they wanted to sell off his property, oh, they paid me in a hurry, y'all. And so that's it. That's what happens if they don't redeem. You're able to collect the property. Now, I do know people who on the very first time they used this strategy, they ended up with a house. I have been doing tax sales since 2007. And I have been part owner of a couple different things. I was like a 39% owner of a gun range, and 40% owner or 51% owner of a couple gas stations. Like I was percent owner of a lot of these things, right? But I have never ended up with the property, y'all. It has always been redeemed. And that gun shop, man, that made me sad because they redeemed at 2 years, 11 months, and 3 weeks. I had one more week. I was salivating, getting all my paperwork together to file and take ownership of this property. Y'all, and they redeemed at the last minute. Yes, I made 41% interest off that bad boy, but I really wanted the building. So one of the things that we do in the follow-on, okay, because I had to learn a new strategy. I was like, I'm tired of not getting the building. Right. And so this year was the first year, y'all, where I could go in there and I used these new strategies that I developed based talking with experts and understanding how other people did business who were doing it on a bigger scale than I was. And finally getting some property, y'all. And if you weren't on that live class and this interests you, we've got 3 hours of verbal. We've got about 4 hours of looking over my shoulder video content. Like, it is powerful and it will help you. I bought properties in this last tax sale for as little as $500. $450. The biggest one was $1,800 for a $500,000 property. And a lot of the things, I know that neighborhood like the back of my hand, so I felt comfortable investing. In some other investors may not have known what some of these properties were. I mean, they could look on the map, but if you're not comfortable with some of these rural things, you may not know if it's worth anything or not. So I always recommend you go look first. But once you get that eyes on, and the property hasn't burned to the ground, I'm telling you, this can be a very, very powerful strategy. But again, think about what I said in the beginning of this class. Even with that strategy, I'm not cherry picking which property I want. See, the juiciest, most beautiful looking properties, those usually go fast and at high prices to investors with deeper pockets. But in this case, I've got a couple tiny homes. I've got a trailer home. I've got some land. I've got that commercial one that I just told you about. Y'all, you got to work with what works for you. And you have to be open, because even if I'm never going to live in a tiny home that's 30 minutes outside of town, although I used to travel that road quite often, even though I'm never going to live there, I will be able to leverage that property later. I'll either be able to put a rent to owner in there. I'll be able to Airbnb it. I'll be able to take some, sell it outright. There's all kinds of things I can do to take that and leverage it later on. But if you're paying $3,000 a month for somebody else's rent, well, why not? Why not look into it? Why not try it? Why not just see if there's something out there? There was this church there was this church I really wanted, and I would drive past it every day, and it was a beautiful building right by the house, and we just knew, me and my oldest son, because it didn't sell for so long, we just knew that the Lord had reserved it for us. Another church has bought it, and we've moved away, so I'm pretty sure the Lord doesn't have it for us, but you never know, because he keeps giving me churches in Louisiana. Know why. They just keep coming to me like I'm not there. Like, Lord, are you trying to tell me to go back and open up another church in Louisiana? Like, I mean, we've done this a couple times now. Is that I don't know. I don't know, but I keep ending up like like my first Subject 2 deal was a church, and one of my other deals recently was a church. I'm just like, wow, this is great. I mean, if you want to learn how to buy a church building for $3,000, I can help you with that. Anyway, but we just knew it was ours. And I went and did my research and found out they bought that building at a tax sale for $10,000 and turned around and sold it for 1.8 million. Do you think you could set up your family's financial tree, your family's financial future with 1.8 million? Especially if you did it tax-free in your self-directed IRA, so you don't have to pay tax on that 1.7 and 900,000 and 990,000 million, right? Don't you think you could do something with that? Let's just drop the numbers down a little bit. What if you got a little trailer on an acre of land outside on the outskirts of town, and you got that for a tax sale of $500, and then you maybe had to pay $2,000 or $3,000 in legal fee to get it? Could you rent that out for $500, $600, $700 a month and make your money back in a year or two? Could you take a little home? Could you take a plot of land that you acquired for $400 and go to the neighbor on this side and ask if they want it for 1,000, and go to the neighbor on that side and ask if they want it for 1,000? And don't you think somebody will want it for 1,000? See, we despise small beginnings sometimes. Don't despise small beginnings. Small beginnings can lead to large portfolios. And I hope that today I have inspired you that you can do this. Even if you don't have a whole lot of money, it does not take a whole lot of money to invest in tax sales. It does not take a whole lot of money to take over somebody else's loan. It costs you paperwork, and it costs you finding the deal. And if you have money for marketing, you can market. If you don't have money for marketing, you can talk. Do you notice how almost every conversation I have lately, I'm letting people know that I'm looking for property for Erath County veterans? If I say it enough times, somebody's going to give us a building. They're either going to give it to us outright, or they're going to let us rent it up for a while, right? So I want to encourage you that there are ways to do it, and we can sit down and talk with you about your personality and what's the best way to do for your medical and your personality and your time constraints and all of those kinds of things. We can sit down and do that. But I really want you to do two things. If you like what I've said today, I want you to go out on my YouTube channel. I'm going to type this in the chat so I don't forget it, okay? I'm going to want you to go to Tax Sales 101, okay? That's one that's out there. Tax Sales 101. Oh, wait. YouTube. Should I click? You know what? I'm not even going to try to do that. I was going to click to YouTube. No. Are you there? Are you there? See, that's why. And I didn't even actually do it. I was just about to do it. And then I said, no, don't do it. You'll lose your broadcast. I hope y'all can still hear me. Okay, so I'm just gonna drop some titles in the chat. Can y'all still hear me? I don't see the green on my microphone going up. Let me check my settings here. Audio. Yeah, it says okay. It says it in that view. Okay, good. All right, so you're gonna go to YouTube. Careful not to bonk the wrong thing. YouTube at JJ Knows the Way. And you're going to watch three videos. You're going to watch Tax Sales 101. If that interests you, you're going to do Creative Financing 101 if the other ones interest you, and then you're going to do Driving for Dollars 101, which is how to find the properties. Okay, and it's not all just about driving, it's also about marketing and prospecting, but it's under the banner of Driving for Dollars. Okay, so, and as Monique put on there, so I'm going to make that a comment. And before I put that comment up, yeah, I'll just go ahead and put that comment up. There we go. You're going to look for, if depending on if you like tax sales, what I told you about that or not, if you're interested in the lease option or the owner financing or the subject to, that is in Creative Financing 101. Okay, so you're going to search for that. No matter which strategy you like, you want the Driving for Dollars one, okay? And then if you know for sure you want to sit down with me either through Zoom or in the room, you're going to want to go and text me because I don't have the class portal built yet. I've been focusing on Juneteenth, y'all. You're going to want to text me 254-454-HOPE. You're going to text me that you want in, you put in debt-free house, and then I'm going to give you information about the 24 July workshop once we finalize with the hotel. Okay. But as Monique said, I also want to call to your attention JuneteenthLegacy.com, because we have a fantastic workshop that I've done for Juneteenth Legacy. It's almost 2 hours, y'all, and it is called the Tax Sale Trifecta. So if you know that you are interested in tax sales, then you want to go out to the tax sale, you want to go out to JuneteenthLegacy.com, and you want to, in fact, I'm going to pull it up for you just so you can see it real quick, what it looks like, so you know what you're looking at. Okay. You want to go out to JuneteenthLegacy.com. You want to click on register for your free ticket. You also want to scroll down and get your t-shirt. Y'all, I got 6 of these left and I don't want to keep them for the next year. All right. But you're going to go to JuneteenthLegacy.com. You're going to get your free ticket, and then it's going to show you, it's your order confirmation. It'll say download the schedule. You can download the schedule, and you're going to look for this class, the Tax Sale Trifecta. Okay, it is almost 2 hours of me walking through the different types of tax sales, including me showing you with you looking at the screen, what to click and how to research. Oh, y'all, this is a good one. And I know a lot of times, today's day and age, we want everything to be 90 seconds or less. We want shorts, we want TikToks, but this is juicy. If you take this workshop and you take what's in it and roll with it and run with it, you will become financially independent. Now, if it's not for you, that's fine. But there's no reason anybody in here under the sound of my voice cannot buy their own property by the end of next year. None, not at all. Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you to being here today. I appreciate you. I appreciate Dr. Eric. I think I saw that he was on as well. Um, I saw some other names, but the thing is scrolled past and I forgot to acknowledge you when I'm on. But you know what? I love it. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all more than you know when y'all leave your comments or when you give me those hearts and those likes and those loves. Sometimes I just, I'm pretty self-assured. I know that I'm doing a good thing. And because people are buying and I wake up to those notifications of payment received, I know that other people appreciate enough what I'm doing to pay for the follow-on courses. So I know that intellectually, but it does my heart so good to see you all on when I do these classes. So, and we are looking, y'all, I'm going to be honest with you. We are looking, now that I have the new office, we are looking at moving from a Thursday night broadcast to moving it during the day. I'm hesitant to do that. I've been teaching on Thursday nights for about 10 years now, almost 10 years now. And it's kind of inbred in my DNA, but it's also not always the best fit for the family. And so we're going to have to see about that going forward. But y'all need to let me know, because if y'all show up, I'm going to show up. All right. All right. All right. Okay. That's all I've got for you today. I don't think I see any questions in the chat. If you got a question, drop it in real quick while I'm reminding you to go out to JuneteenthLegacy.com and buy your ticket for the conference. And not buy, the tickets are free. The tickets are free. But you also want to register for the Black Veterans Brunch, and you want to get your t-shirt. And if you are interested in the follow-on class to tonight, text me at 254-454-HOPE. That goes to this phone. Clearly, I'm not going to get to it right away. Okay, so it might be in the morning, but I will respond to you with information about that as soon as we get the hotel. And if we don't get the hotel locked down by tomorrow afternoon, I will go ahead and just send you a placeholder. So what I'll do is I'm building the class for it, where the videos are get hung. With the videos that I mentioned from YouTube, they're already going to be in there, and we'll go ahead and do pre-sales into that class. Okay. Woo, fun times, y'all. Y'all take care. That's all I've got for you. Let me check one more time for questions. That's nothing heard. So I'm going to go ahead and go hang out with Mr. Man. Y'all have a great night. I will see you live at 9:00 Eastern for our morning tea, the last day of our Juneteenth conference. We're going to roll into a closed session at 10:00 Eastern for our Black Veterans Brunch. And then after that, the rest of the conference will stream at JuneteenthLegacyLive.com. That's all I've got for you today. Y'all take care and be blessed.